Thank you for joining today's webinar on the Social Security and Retirement Planning Calculator. My name is Hank Kim, and I'm the Executive Director for the National Conference on Public Employee Retirement Systems. Today's program is part of our Center for Online Learning, which provides remote continuing education to public pension trustees, staff, and other fiduciaries and stakeholders. In today's webinar, we will introduce and highlight the features of a unique and exciting new tool to help employees maximize their Social Security benefit and plan their retirement. Leading us in today's webinar are Michael Murlaub and Paul Bauger from Foster & Foster. We encourage audience participation. Please submit questions by using the GoToMeetings portal. However, to ensure that we can cover all our topics, we will hold your questions till the last part of the program. Michael, Paul, I'll turn the webinar over to you now.
Terrific. Thank you, Hank, and good afternoon, everyone. As Hank said, my name is Michael Murlaub. I'm a consulting actuary with Foster & Foster. Just want to give you about a minute's worth of my background before we launch into the topic of today. I began my career as an actuary in November of '75 in New York, and so I started over 40 years ago. I was a pre-ERISA baby. ERISA became effective January 1 of '76. So I've done plenty of pension valuations and benefit calculations over the years. About 22 years ago, my family and I moved to Florida, and I actually took a break from doing actuarial work, and I taught middle school math primarily. I've learned that nothing about doing a presentation to a finance board or a pension board can prepare you to teaching algebra to middle school kids. About 12 years ago, I re-entered the profession after GASB started doing some things having to do with retiree medical benefits valuation. I'm 64 years old now, and I've become very interested in the topic about Social Security. When I was in my late 50s and I would see an article, in a financial magazine or an AARP, I would cut it out and put it into a folder. And I said that when I hit 60, I was going to go ahead and start looking at those things I put into the folder. And then, of course, it happened. I hit 60. And this is actually a picture of me on my 60th birthday in the winner's circle with my wife, one of my sons, my best buddy. So that was a very cool way to celebrate the day. And I will tell you that those of you that are responsible for deciding on asset allocation with your plans portfolios, that owning a racehorse is not a good idea in terms of diversification. Okay, so the primary thing that I'm going to be talking about is when you should start to draw a Social Security benefit, when you should start to draw, when your spouse should start to draw, when your plan members should start to draw. So the first thing we need to know is what's the earliest age at which you can start to draw a Social Security benefit, Social Security retirement benefit, and that age is age 62. Now, Social Security benefits are reduced for early retirement just as benefits are reduced under a pension plan. And the amount of the reduction varies upon the age of someone's birth, and that's because what's called the full retirement age varies by date of birth. And we're going to see that in the upcoming chart in a second. So for myself, I was born in '54. The reduction would be 25% if I started at age 62. That's a 25% reduction from my full retirement age, which is 66. But for someone born in 1960 or later, there would be a 30% reduction. Now, if you decide to draw benefits later than your full retirement age, benefits increase. So in my case, they reduce 6.25% per year early, but they increase 8% per year for delayed retirement. And the latest age to which that increase goes on is age 70. So for most people, it's somewhere between 62 and 70 that you're going to retire. You can delay retirement until after age 70, but there's simply no increase in that benefit. Okay, so this is the chart that I referred to. This is available at ssa.gov. If you would like information about it, you can send me an email or give me a call, and I will provide this chart to you. But again, what this shows you is that for someone such as myself, age 66, if I was going to get a $1,000 retirement benefit at my full retirement age, which is 66, I would get a 25% reduction or $750 at age 62. All right, so let's go through this one last time. If my benefit is $2,000 a month at age 66, I would get $1,500 a month at 62, or a 32% increase, or 132% of PIA. In this case, $2,640 a month if I waited until age 70. Okay, so if I know my date of birth and I know my PIA, I can figure out exactly when to start drawing my benefit if I know exactly one more piece of data, and that is when I'm going to die. Now, I'm sure everybody who's on the call knows that actuaries love mortality tables, and there's various different mortality tables that are in use. The expected life for somebody at a given age is dependent upon a number of variables, and the one that we see in our actuarial evaluations mostly is by gender. So for male age 62, according to this specific table, he would continue to live for another 22 years. A female would live another 24 years. If you have a married couple, each of which is age 62, based on these tables, there's a 40% chance that at least one lives to age 90. Now, those tables are general tables for the whole United States, but there are other factors that can be considered, such as race, location in the country, what job you do, and then, of course, there's health and family factors. So, for instance, if you've had a serious disease, heart attack, stroke, cancer, you have diabetes, those might tend to reduce your life expectancy. Of course, that doesn't mean that you're going to die at a specific point in time, but in terms of actuarial analysis, it does mean that your life expectancy would be lower. Then, again, you can look at your family history. I mean, nobody knows your own individual circumstances better than you do. So, for instance, if your parents both had heart disease and died at a relatively early age, that might be something to consider in terms of making a decision about when to start drawing your benefit. On the other hand, if your parents lived, into the 80s or late 80s or 90s, and the same thing is true of uncles and aunts, that perhaps you have longevity in your life. And then, of course, there's lifestyle factors. And there are online calculators that are available, such as bankrate.com, that can give you some better guidance. And it's a very simple calculator. It's got 9 questions. It asks you your age and gender. And then it asks you height and weight, asks you whether you smoke, how much you drink, and one general question about your parents. And that can help you give you guidance in terms of what your own individual life expectancy would be. But of course, there are other considerations besides how long am I going to live and what's going to give me the best financial result over a long period of time. You have to take a look at your overall financial picture. So for instance, I have friends who are supporting a child that's in grad school or medical school, or have parents who are aged and who they're helping out. So they might be able to say, well, look, I'd love to be able to wait until age 70 to get a bigger benefit, bigger Social Security benefit, but I need the money now. Okay, so let's take a look at this example. Michael is 62. He's in good health. His parents are age 90. They're still in good health. PIA is $2,000. If he starts drawing his benefit at 62, he would get $1,500 a month. So which is a better option, starting at 62 or waiting until 66? So let's take a look at these two charts. On this first chart on the left-hand side, Michael could start drawing his benefit at 62. And you can see this is the line. This is the cumulative amount of money that he would receive until he passes away. The second option would be to wait 4 years until he's 66 and then start drawing a benefit. This benefit will be larger, so the lines will cross. And the break-even point where the lines meet is at 16 years, so at age 78. So this chart shows the same information, but in a different way. This shows the cumulative difference between those two amounts. So in the first case, if I started to draw that benefit immediately compared to what I delayed for 4 years, I would be 4 full years of those $2,000 a month behind. So the greatest difference, of course, would be at age 66. But you see that line catches up, and again, here's the crossover point at 16 years out, and then it goes up, so it'll be over $80,000 out into the future. And from my perspective, where is the financial risk the greatest? Is the financial risk the greatest here, or is the financial risk the greatest here? Now, I know in my case, my parents and my wife's parents all lived into their 80s, and at some point, all 4 of them needed home health aides. And that was an extraordinarily large and unanticipated expense. Okay, so what about if you're married? So we have 2 spouses, and we have a complex set of calculations that have to be done. There's 2 sets of life expectancies. You can consider early retirement, full retirement, late retirement, and then there's also spousal benefits and survivor benefits. Now, if you're saying, well, gee, there's, whoops, it got ahead of me here. I don't know why that's happening. I have to go back. Sorry. Okay, so when spouses are considered, there's a wider range of options that must also be considered. So if you're thinking, well, I can retire at any age between 62 and 70, and my spouse can also retire anywhere between 62 and 70, then you may be thinking that there's 84 possible combinations. But in fact, there are over 10,000. Because I can retire at 66 in 6 months and get a 4% increase. So between my spouse and myself, I have 96 different options. That's almost 100. Multiplied by my spouse is 100. That gives me 10,000. But then when you throw in spousal benefits and survivor benefits, it becomes even greater than 10,000. All right, so let's take a look at one possible scenario. Mary is 62. Her PIA is 800. Scott's 62 and his PIA is 2,400. It's not unusual for one of the spouses to have a benefit that's significantly greater than the others. So one possibility here would be that Mary retired at age 62, began to draw her own benefit. Scott retired at 66 and drew his own benefit. At 66, Mary then takes a spousal benefit. Scott's benefit is 2,400. So if she waits till 62, she would get half of his benefit, which would be $1,200. Now, in this case, there would be a permanent reduction because she started to draw her benefit early. Okay, so I only covered some basics here. There are other things that can be taken into account. Benefits are taxable. What happens if you want to work and start drawing benefits? Individual circumstances matter, and they vary. And you are the best person to know what your own individual circumstances are. Choosing the wrong option can leave money on the table, and tools can help you and your participants make better informed decisions. Okay, Amanda, I'm gonna turn it back to you.
I'm just changing the presenter to Paul.
Okay.
Excellent. Thank you, Amanda. This is Paul Bacher. I'm going to take about 20 minutes or so and walk you through a tool that Michael and I have developed called the Retirement Planning Calculator that allows you to consider all the aspects of your retirement in a single tool, and then from that, get a summary that helps you see what income sources do I have, what expenses am I expecting, and how do those line up? Am I really prepared for retirement, or are there different things I need to do differently in order to get myself ready when that time comes? So you can see here on your screen, I believe, the landing page for the Retirement Planning Calculator. It's the same for all different clients. It shows someone being very comfortable and relaxing in their retirement. The key here is that it can be a very customized tool. There's a lot of features here to this tool. I'm going to give you the high level overview, but you can see here on this landing page, you can customize the employer, the contact information. Another thing I appreciate about this is that the employers themselves don't need to be involved with account setup. That's something that employees can do themselves. We get data directly from the employer and have it behind the scenes. And then when they're ready to set things up, they can come right here and set up their own account with a little bit of background information and then develop their own username and password. So there's no need for the employer to be an intermediary passing around usernames and such and being involved in that process. But for today, I'm going to go ahead and just use an account I've already set up.
exactly for this purpose. And you can see when you log in then that you come to this landing page where all four of the aspects that we're going to talk about are shown, from pension, Social Security, savings, and then over here on the right you have expenses as well. All three income items and expenses pulled together in one single place. And so today I'm going to walk you through, you can see them here on this screen on the right, on the left hand side as well. I'm going to walk you through each of these sections here on the left, walking you through how the system works and what it's looking for, to give you just a feel of that, so that as we move into this retirement summary at the end, you can see where everything came from and what it means. So we're going to start with the pension section. As you can see from the dashboard, let me go back here for a minute. You can click on any section you want to. You can do any and all sections. The key here is that the retirement summary doesn't mean a whole lot unless you've got all the things reflected. If you have your expenses and only have your Social Security coming in, there's a good chance you won't have enough money to cover your expenses. So it really helps to pull in all the information. But if you want to come in today and deal with your pension, and then some other time come in and deal with savings and Social Security, the system is flexible and remembers what you've input, and will call upon that when you come back. So today we're just going to go to the pension section. You can see here on the landing page, the pension sort of outlines what it's trying to do. We've got the capability of adding important documents from the employer, whether it be an SPD, other calculation information you like to provide to participants in terms of benefits and survivor benefits. I know that's a key for some of our groups. You can put that all here as an easy reference for people to call upon. Then when they actually click the Get Started button, it brings them, and you see here the left-hand side's change. What we've tried to do here is reflect family units. We aren't just trying to look at the member themselves. We're trying to look at the entire family because, like Michael talked about, Social Security is a mutual benefit. So we aren't just looking at the benefit that the employer is providing. We're trying to look at prior pensions. If somebody worked 10 years at a place before they came to work for City of ABC, we want them to be able to pull that information in as well. Similarly with the spouse pension, if you're married and your spouse is working, there's going to be an income and possibly a pension there as well. So wanting to look at everything together. But as far as demonstrating it, I'm just going to show you this client or the current pension, and the other two will be very similar. The current pension is something that we're very excited about because it allows us, there's a lot of flexibility here with the current pension. What we are able to do, like I mentioned before, we can pull in from data from the employer, but behind the scenes here, if you so desire, we can set up a calculator so that as people update their information, it will dynamically change the benefit that's being shown and make it a much more useful tool. As you can see, if I come in here and change the salary, we've got this summary paragraph here on the right that will update as well. If I change the service to 20 years, his benefit changed from $1,900 to $2,600. And so we've got this dynamic summary here on the right that is taking all the information from the salary history, the years of service, when your payments are going to begin, whether that's age 65 or anything really, and then the form of payment you're going to take. All this can be customized in a calculator behind the scenes so that you don't have to have people coming to you and saying, I want calculations at 55, 60, and 65 just so they can put it in here. Mind you, we have an option that doesn't have that calculator. If price is an issue, we have simpler options that don't have that capability, but we really like the capability simply because it can allow people to be independent of their HR department and really model things at various different ages all on their own whenever they choose. So you can see we've walked through the various different pieces. It summarized it here on the right. And as I mentioned, prior pension, the spouse pension are very similar. The only key difference there is we don't do a calculator for all prior pensions because we don't know all those prior employers. So there you're actually inputting a single amount. I'll switch to the prior pension page real quick. Here you can see you're actually inputting what that monthly benefit is rather than us calculating it. That would be what the current pension would look like if we don't have that calculator behind the scenes. But you can see there's few different bells and whistles, different ways that we can set this up for you depending on your situation and what you want the tool to do for you. There is some customization available to you, but largely this is what we're going to be showing for people: the current, the prior pension, the spouse pension, and any other benefits that the employer might be providing from a pension perspective. When you get done, there's a summary page, nothing real exciting here, but it walks through each of those pieces and gives you a summary overall. Next, I'm going to take you to the Social Security page. This really plays to what Michael was talking about. And so when you come here, the landing page, again, it's showing some background information, but along with it, we've tried to add videos and then scripts of those videos in various different places. I'm going to expand it over time, but in this case, Social Security being such a less understood benefit, let's say, Michael's gone ahead and developed videos that are very similar to what he's already talked about, with additional material as well, to walk people through the Social Security benefit as a whole when they're ready to hear it. So they don't have to come to a seminar like this and learn about it and then go away. They've got the seminar at their disposal whenever they're ready. They can just click, listen for 5 to 10 minutes, depending on the video, and they are up to speed and ready to walk through this section. Okay? But when we actually enter the Social Security section, again, you can see here on the left, there's a few different pages. I'm going to walk you through the benefits page and the optimized page. For those people that a lot of times this can happen with teachers, where you're not paying into the Social Security system, but maybe you have a side job where you are paying into Social Security, and so you've got two different benefits, and you might get Social Security, and there's a government pension and a Social Security benefit mixed in. There's some other reductions that come into play. We're not getting into that today as much, but we have that built in here. So when those complexities arise in your situation, we're ready to handle it. And we've got links and things to help walk people through that at the time. As far as the benefits page, though, you see here that it's very simple. We're asking for that PIA amount that Michael talked about, both for you and your spouse, if that's applicable, and then when you're expecting to start. Like Michael was talking, maybe people are thinking that 62 is the best age for them. They come in here and click 62. But the great thing about our tool is that we've got this optimizer page where it's coming in here and saying, you know what, I think that 62 is the best option for me, but according to our calculations, if Adam and Ava were to wait until 69 and 68 respectively, they can actually get about another $50,000 from Social Security over their lifetime. This is what Michael was talking about with those charts and comparing different ages. So we know that everyone's situation is a little different. Maybe Adam and Ava aren't able to wait until 69 and 68 for that additional income to come into place. But we have the flexibility, we're giving them the information, and then if they want to reflect that information, you can change ages here, you can click the optimal age here, and it will reflect that in the retirement summary later. But there is the capability here to help encourage people to think through all the different ages that are available to them and what a better age might be for them if their situation allows. Okay, the next section we're going to look at is savings. A big component nowadays is a lot of employers might be stressing the defined benefit pension plan a little less and putting more into a savings plan. The savings can come not only from the employer though, but we've got IRAs and 401ks from other employers and personal savings. So we want to look at savings holistically, just like we're looking at pensions and other pieces holistically. So coming here, the big thing with savings that's different from pensions and Social Security is returns. You're investing for yourself now, and so you have to have some sort of sense of what you're returning on those benefits so that we can model things out into the future. We've tried to do it in such a way that it's very simple here. This tool is not really designed to give exact dollar amounts. We're not trying to tell people that if this happens and this happens at age 66, you're getting this exact dollar amount. What we're trying to do is really help people make sure they're prepared and in the right ballpark so that expenses are roughly in line with their income and that such discussion. So we've tried to provide investment return options here in a narrow range that keep people from doing things that aren't likely. It's possible they could earn 10% a year for 10 years. It's not real likely though. So as such, we've limited our investment return range during your employment period to be these integers from 3 to 7. And then down below, we give a little bit of background, just letting you know, if you're invested conservatively, mainly in bonds, perhaps you want to use the 3 or 4%. If you're a little more aggressive, perhaps it could go up to as much as 7% in our illustration. But basically, you could come in here, pick a rate of return, and then it will be used on these next pages. You can see here on the left, we've suddenly got a member and spouse page, and they are called contribution and withdrawal. They're exactly the same for the member and spouse, which makes sense, right? I mean, you're going to have similar savings accounts available to you. You're going to have different ways of withdrawing that. So we've tried to keep it consistent there. I'm going to walk you through the member pages here. So you can see here for Adam, he's got 4 different options as far as savings balances that he currently has. One could be the employer balance. This is something, again, that if we get the data, we can populate this for you, or they can come in and type it in themselves like we have here. He can come in here and say he's got $100,000. Also trying to pull in those other pieces I was talking about, any 401ks, 403bs, IRAs, personal savings. And from that, we developed this little pie chart that sort of shows of your balances where it's all coming from. The real key, though, the savings section, though, is here on this next page, where we're looking at, we're taking those balances from today into the future, and then looking at withdrawals and considering that over time. So you can see here that we ask a few more questions in terms of what contributions are coming in every year. That's looking at total contributions. So your contribution, as well as the employer contribution. When did those contributions stop? When are you expecting withdrawals to begin? Just basic kind of how is the benefit accumulating, and then how will you decumulate it? The problem is you can go online in terms of decumulation, and you might see sites that say, you know what, you're going to withdraw 3 to 4% a year. But what does that really translate to? Does that make sense in your situation? The reality is nobody knows except you. What we're trying to do, though, is help you down that path, not giving you the definitive answer, but giving you at least one data point to think about. And that's what this level withdrawal amount is. What we've taken here is saying, if you accumulate a balance that was today about $101,000, grows until you're about $62,000 to $350,000, how do you take that and make it last the rest of your life? And so we have your current balances, we have your current age, we know your life expectancy because that's an input I didn't show you. And from that, if we were to take those and say you were to get a level amount for the rest of your life, that's what this level withdrawal amount is. Nothing real exciting, but at least gives you something to think about. If I were to get an annuity from this for what I expect to be the rest of my life, for Adam, it would be about $1,700. And then he could come down here and input it and just type it in. And you could see then that as his balance grows and decumulates, by the time he leaves, he's got a tiny little balance. He should have next to nothing left when he dies. So you can walk through that as a member, as a spouse. The last section, though, we start moving from income and looking at expenses. And so that's what this last section is looking at. Again, the landing page is very similar, giving you some background, but there's a couple different features here with the expenses that we didn't see on the income pages. First is simply the fact that expenses change during retirement. We've tried to do it in such a way that you give us your expenses, and that's pretty much a constant throughout the rest of your life. But we understand that there can be changes. You could pay off your mortgage. You might retire at 55 and know that Medicare kicks in at 65, and so your medical expenses are going to change. They could change for a number of different reasons. And so we didn't think that just having a steady expense for the entire time made sense, but we didn't want to make it overly dynamic. So we allow you to change things once. We've got it set up here so that Adam's benefits or expenses are expected to change at 65. The other option that we have here on the expense landing page is an override feature. If you don't have this clicked, you can see down at the bottom it says get started. And what it's going to do is take you through a number of different pages, but all the different aspects of expenses in retirement that you might have, be it mortgages, property taxes, auto expenses, food. Oftentimes I think of the other as a throwaway bucket, but there is just sort of a catch-all where we're including medical and charity and taxes, some pretty big expense items. But you can walk through each of these pages and tell me, okay, what's your expense today? What's your expense going to be in the future? Do I even think this expense is going to change? Maybe it's not going to. You can walk through each one of those. For some people, that's going to be exactly what they need so they can think about every different expense and not have to come up with it on their own. For other people, though, they might already know what their current expenses are and just want to use that as a proxy. And so we give them that with this override button here. If you don't want to walk through it all, you can just come in here and say, I think my expenses are going to be $5,000 in retirement, and afterwards it's going to be, let's say it's going to be $4,500. And that's it. You can do it. You can ignore the expense section entirely, and it's going to reflect those amounts in the retirement summary. So again, we've got as little or as much as the people want to take on. But I keep talking about this retirement summary. It's really what we're building to. It's what we come to here. The retirement summary is really pulling all those pieces together, where you've got your pension, your savings, your Social Security, all here shown as income in the green bars. Those expenses, the $5,000 for a period and the $4,500 are shown here as the red bars. So you can get a comparison here year by year of what your monthly expenses are going to be. And you can see in this case, Adam and Ava are going to be a little short, perhaps, at the beginning. They're going to be very comfortable, it looks like, in the middle years, and they might have a little shortness there at the back end. So it's something for them to think about. The tool allows them to go back and adjust things and say, well, what if we worked a few more years and we're starting in 2042 instead of 2038, those kind of things. So very flexible tool. You can go back and adjust things as needed and then come back to the retirement summary to see how those things impact. If you want to change your retirement investment return, your savings return, just tweak that one button, come back here and see what it does for you. So in this retirement summary, we also have some additional details where you can get an Excel file that has all this information if you want to share it with an investment provider or a tax specialist to help you out with those kind of thoughts. We've got a high-level timeline that sort of walks you through when all these different things are going to happen that we've made elections and assumptions on in the prior section. So we're walking through everything and allows you to see what's going on. The other thing on this left-hand side we haven't really talked about, like I said, this is a high-level summary, but along the way, this help and support button has been in every section we've been part of. We know that questions are going to come up. Some are going to be driven by individual situations. Some are going to be, I just don't understand what the tool's telling me. And so along the way, we can point people to where those questions can be delivered. And again, some of them are going to be person-specific, so you all can handle those. Others might be tool-specific, so you need to pass them along to me. But we'll know, they will know who to contact, and then you can pass it along as needed. We are here to help along the way once your tool is set up and live for your people. So that, Hank and Amanda, that is our high-level review of the site. I think if there's any questions or anything, Michael and I are available to handle those at this time.
Great. Thank you, Paul. Thank you, Michael. So there are a number of questions. First is, does divorce affect my Social Security benefit, my new spouse's benefit, and if my ex-spouse is able to tap into my Social Security benefit?
Okay, that's a good question. I'm not up on all the details of divorce and Social Security benefits. I believe that you must be married to the same individuals for at least 10 years in order to be able to draw on the other person's benefit. I can certainly get more details if the person who submitted that question would like to contact me.
I guess more to the point, Michael and Paul, is the calculator, would that be able to calculate that for the individuals?
No, the individual would have to figure out that information themselves. So again, I believe if, for instance, if Bonnie's been married to me for this many years, as long as that's over 10, she's entitled to a portion of my benefit. But that would be something that the person would need to go to the local Social Security Administration, or perhaps look up online.
Great, thank you. Another
Okay.
question is for long-term financial planning, what
Right.
annual percent in Social Security benefits should be included?
I'm not sure I understand the question, Hank. Can you read it?
Yeah, I'll read it again. For
Okay.
long-term financial planning,
Right.
what annual percent in Social Security benefits should be included?
Well, the way that a person can find out what their Social Security benefit is, there's two ways. The Social Security Administration has been sending out benefit statements. I know I've gotten them. For a while, they were sending them out year after year, and then they stopped doing it. I believe they're doing it now every 5 years. So, so you may have the Social Security statement in a drawer someplace. If not, you can go online and find out what it is. In fact, the very first video, I believe, in that section, on the Social Security section, talks about how to do this. So you go into ssa.gov, you enter in your Social Security benefit, your date of birth, and your name, and then what will happen is you'll be asked somewhere between 3 and 5 questions about your own financial history. So you have to remember, where you got your mortgage from, what kind of car you drove 20 years ago. And then when you get past that, you'll be taken to a page where it will show you a dollar amount of your Social Security benefit at your full retirement age. And that's what's called your PIA. So again, in my case, my full retirement age is 66. So it will tell me what my PIA is at 66. And then if you haven't reached 62 yet, it will show you what your benefit would be at 62 and also up until age 70. So it's not a percentage, it's a dollar amount that you would be entitled to get.
Great, thank you, Michael. Another question is, to what degree can the app accommodate complex features in the pension plan, such as frozen plans or multiple tiers of plans, or multiple tiers in the pension plan?
Yeah, I mean that's something that's something that we could easily handle. We've got other employers now that have different benefits for different groups of people. We've got a group that has an health and welfare benefit that's payable in retirement that looks like a pension. So we've built that in. We've even considered, if there are those groups that have frozen pensions, doing something like the prior pension page where it can really just input a frozen amount and be able to model those things. So we have the flexibility to deal with as much or as little complexity that there is, as long as you all can provide the information, or we help us understand that information. We can get it programmed and put it on the site.
Hank, let me just add on to that. When I was down in Austin at the ACE, there are a number of people that are in plans where there already is an existing pension benefit calculator, and so what we could do is we could integrate that calculator with this program, rather than having to make somebody go through a pension calculation twice.
Oh, great, thank you. And would the calculator be available to non-participants? I'm assuming this means like maybe spouses or dependents.
Okay. We're thinking that. Go ahead, Paul, if you want to jump in.
No, go ahead, Michael.
We're thinking that this is for plan participants only, but that doesn't necessarily just mean active employees, though. So, for instance, if a plan has a generous early retirement feature, and there are a number of plan members who are retired at an early age who would want to take advantage of this, I don't see any reason why they would be precluded from doing so.
Now, for those who are viewing this and would like to, for lack of a better phrase, test drive the calculator, is there ability to permit them access on a temporary basis?
Yeah, Hank, that's something we actually did with people down at ACE, where we were giving out cards with personalized username and password for them to go out and use, and it lasts forever, to be honest. So, I mean, they can go out and play with it now and play with it 3 months from now when they think about it again. So the key there is we've got our contact information with this webinar. They can contact us or contact you all and let us know that they're interested, and we can connect with them and get them that personalized information.
Thank you, Paul. And then the last question is, what's the pricing for the calculator?
Okay, Paul, do you want to grab that, or do you want me to take that?
No, I'll take it, Michael. So we've got a lot of flexibility here. I hope you've seen as we've gone through this that there's pension customization that can be built in or not built in. As we've talked, there could be very complex plans, there could be very simple plans, there could be large groups, there could be small groups. So the pricing really develops based on what you need, what you have, those kind of things. So we try to take those all into account. We've got very simple solutions that can be available for $5,000 to $10,000 as setup, and then an annual fee per person going on. And that's for a decent sized group, 500 to 1,000 people maybe. We've got larger groups that are looking at more like a $20,000 setup with an annual fee to go along with that. So we've got a range. I wouldn't let price be an issue at this point until you talk to us, because we do have a variety of solutions and can customize things so it fits not only your benefits but also your price range.
Great. Thank you, Paul. Thank you, Michael. I think those are the last questions we have. So again, thank you both for this great presentation today.
All right.
And to the audience, at the end of this webinar, there will be 3 short survey questions that we ask you to answer. Thank you for joining us today, and I look forward to hosting you at the next webinar, which will be on July 10th on best governance practices. And thank you again so much for joining us.
Okay. Thank you, Hank.
Thank you, Hank.
Thank you, Michael. Thank you, Paul.